getting disturbed by Indra. And then Lord makes his appearance, and then Prithu Maharaj essentially glorifies the Lord here. So we'll read the first shloka. Sa uttama shloka mahan mukhaschuto bhavat padam boja shuddha kananilaha smritim punar vishmita tattva vartamanam kuyoginam na vitarati alam varaihi. Anybody wants to read the shloka again?
Yes, Prabhuji. Shall I read? 25. Pranams, Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sa uttama sloka mahan mukhachuto bhavat padhamboja sudha kananilaha smritim punar vishmrita tattva vartmanam kuyoginam no vitarati alam varai. Translation and purport. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Archana Mataji has her hand up. Please go on to read the purport, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. It is explained in the previous verse that one has to hear glorification of the Lord from the mouth of a pure devotee. This is further explained here. The transcendental vibration from the mouth of a pure devotee is so powerful that it can revive the living entity's memory of its eternal relationship with Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our material existence, under the influence of illusory Maya, we have almost forgotten our eternal relationship with the Lord, exactly like a man sleeping very deeply who forgets his duties. In the Vedas, it is said that every one of us is sleeping under the influence of Maya. We must get up from this slumber and engage in the right service, for thus we can properly utilize the facility of this human form of life. As expressed in a song by Thakura Bhakti Vinoda, Lord Chaitanya says, Jiva Jago, Jiva Jago. The Lord asks every sleeping living entity to get up and engage in devotional service so that his mission in this human form of life may be fulfilled. This awakening voice comes through the mouth of a pure devotee. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky. The voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particle of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything.
Raksha Mataji also has her hand up.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. A pure devotee always engaged in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has direct connection with the. Okay, so this paragraph is done, right? So last paragraph I have to read.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, Prabhu. Yeah. For a conditioned soul, therefore, it is very important to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord without any material desire. The speculative knowledge or contamination of the modes of material nature. Every one of us is Kuyogi because we have engaged in the service of this material world, forgetting our eternal relationship with the Lord or as his eternal loving servant. It is our duty to rise from the Kuyoga platform to become Suyogis, perfect mystics. The process of hearing from a pure devotee is recommended in all Vedic scriptures, especially by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One may stay in his position of life. It doesn't matter that it is, but if one hears from the mouth of a pure devotee, he gradually comes to an understanding of his relationship with the Lord and thus engage in his loving service, and his life becomes completely perfect. Therefore, this process of hearing from the mouth of pure devotee is very important for making progress in the line of spiritual understanding. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So here, it's a very beautiful translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. First thing, Prabhupada, when he begins this purport, he straight away goes to this section. The forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you, which is the Supreme Lord. Now, it is when a pure devotee essentially is basically glorified by the Lord, by his pure devotees. Such glorification is like saffron particles. Now, you will not find saffron particles as such in the word-to-word translation. It's not there. You see, there is this mention of kana or particles, but there's no mention of saffron particles. So, Prabhupada is a bit poetic here. So, he's essentially talked about saffron as a, we call that kesar, right? In Hindi, we call it kesar, which is also applied in milk. It adds a lot of flavor, right? The whole milk turns yellow in color. It adds a lot of flavor. So basically, those saffron particles, essentially the glorification of those saffron particles of the Lord, basically when it comes from the mouth of the great devotees, carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet. So saffron by nature is very aromatic. Once anyone puts it, you can't hide the aroma of the saffron. The same aroma which is there in the Lord's lotus feet, through those particles, because it's going through the wire medium of a pure devotee, the same aroma is felt by the person who's hearing it, right? And therefore, the forgetful living entity remembers his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Right? So it is like when pure devotee talks about the Lord's transcendental qualities comes to fore, and since there is no misinterpretation of the message, it is coming in this disciplinic succession. It is coming in a parampara. There is no tampering with the message, and therefore it brings the recipient to the level of purity that he can remember the lost relationship with the Supreme Lord. Right? My Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee. So basically, the glorification of the Supreme Lord has to be heard from a pure devotee. So there are many of these self-styled gurus who, if anybody watches any of the reels or shorts or any of the quick channels that are available on social media, somebody may like what someone is saying in that first 1 or 2 minutes, but then the person who's probably speaking may not represent a parampara, may not be pure either. Sometimes Prabhupada, in fact, Prabhupada is called out in many places that if you hear it from the mouth of a person who's not in the parampara, or who's not God conscious or Krishna conscious, not following a particular parampara, then it is like milk touched by the lips of a serpent, of a vicious serpent. So it will have a very contrary effect once it's consumed. So here, Prabhupada, in the first passage of the purport itself, he talks about the fact that if somebody is not in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord, then he's essentially still sleeping under the influence of. There are only two modes. It's a binary, right? One can either be Krishna conscious, and if he's not Krishna conscious, he's only Maya conscious, right? He's in Maya. It's either you're with Krishna or you're with Maya. There's no interim state. So essentially, the person is sleeping under the influence of Maya, and therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur being a pure devotee of the Lord, uh, is also the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. He basically quotes this song, which Mahaprabhu had sung sometime on Jiva Jago, Jiva Jago, Gora Chandra Bole. Sleeping entity to get up and engage in devotional service so that his mission in this human form of life may be fulfilled. This awakening voice comes through the mouth of a pure devotee. So what's the of our life? Anybody? What's the mission of our life? What's the
To go back
purpose of
home, back to
engaging in
Godhead.
devotional?
Back to Godhead.
Fantastic.
Back to Godhead.
Yes. Fantastic. Yes, yes. So that's the mission. So when we basically hear through the mouth of a pure devotee, that mission suddenly gets remembered by us. Otherwise, we are lost. See, every time you would see that many times we're in the regular work or regular job or anything on a day-to-day, it's very difficult to remember being Krishna conscious, right? But when it's constantly reminded by a pure devotee, we stay reminded, right? So that's the point here. Now, a pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the Lord's feet of the Lord, over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of a material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of the saffron dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. Now, there is a very potent message hidden inside the sentences that Prabhupada is quoting here. So, one thing that many devotees have mentioned, and I also realized, is that when we hear lectures from like lectures which have been spoken or the classes that have been taken by Srila Prabhupada directly, once we either watch those tapes or hear those classes, the message actually sinks quite deep, right? That's because it's coming from a very pure devotee of the Lord, a Shaktiavesh of the Shaktiavesh avatar of the Lord. Right? And similarly, one should. Yesterday, I was in a class where we had a disciple meet for our Maharaj. So there were two things that were reinforced. One is the fact that one should directly hear from Prabhupada, which is what is mentioned as one of the learnings coming from this line, and also from one's own spiritual master, so that the bonding with spiritual master, the connection with spiritual master is maintained. We are able to do. There are two types of sevas that one can do if spiritual master is alive. One is a Bapu Seva, the other is a Vani Seva. So Bapu Seva is essentially an ability to serve the spiritual master in person. Like, for example, somebody may, if somebody is fortunate enough, Maharaj may come to their home. They may be able to organize a nice program for Maharaj, serve Maharaj directly. Right? That is Bapu Seva. But many cases, our spiritual masters may be at a distant location. We may not get the opportunity. And every spiritual master reinforces the fact that please do Vani Seva. Vani Seva means following the instructions of the spiritual master as they have communicated in their classes. So Vani Seva is going to be perennial. Even today, though Srila Prabhupada is not there in this material world, we are able to follow him, we are able to appreciate his presence through his voice. So that is very, very important. So we have to listen to those transcendental sound vibrations. Right? As soon as a living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from a mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers. So when one hears from a pure devotee of the Lord, the lost eternal relationship is revived again. Right? And he is able to remember everything. So here, the next line, it is very important to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord without any material desire, speculative knowledge, or contamination of the modes of nature. Every one of us is kuyogi because we have engaged in the service of this material world. So as we saw that if we are not serving Krishna, we are serving Maya. Right? So the moment we are in the service of the material world, we basically lose touch with the Lord. So it is our duty to rise from Yoga platform to become Suyogis or perfect yogis, perfect mystics. The process of hearing from pure devotees recommended in all Vedic scriptures, especially by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, the interesting bit that is also to be noted here is that among all faculties like eyes, nose, ear, mouth, the faculties on our face, basically, the last to go is the ear. One can, it's mentioned that as one leaves his body, the last senses to go is actually the power of hearing. Till that time, one is able to hear. So imagine how merciful and benevolent Lord is, that He's given these ears that the message of the Lord through a pure devotee of our Lord can go in even at the last breath, because this is the last sense to leave our body. So, so that's one thing. One may stay in his position of life. It does not matter what it is. If one hears from the mouth of a pure devotee and his understanding of the relationship of the Lord, and he engages in his loving service, and his life becomes completely perfect. Right. So, so basically, there are couple of things here on the power of hearing. Basically, shrotavyam. That particular word comes quite a lot of times in all the scriptures. Basically, when we essentially even chant, what we do is we basically recite the holy names of the Lord. We chant the holy names of the Lord, and chanting is complete only when you hear those holy names of the Lord, right? Chanting and hearing, chanting and hearing. That's the process. So as we hear the holy names of the Lord, it permeates into our heart, cleanses all the sins that may exist, and basically it leads to the Cheto Darshana Darpana Marjana that we see in Shikshashtakam, right? It cleanses the dust that has been settled on our heart and basically connects us with the Lord. Right? So chanting, and through chanting, hearing the holy names of the Lord is also very, very important. So that's the bit which is covered here. We'll go to the next one. Any questions? Okay. Yashah Shivam Sushrava Arya Sangame Idrichaya Choparshnoti Te Sakrit Katam Gunagno Pyramid Vina Pasum Shriryat Pravare Guna Sangrahechaya. Anybody wants to recite the shloka again?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dhanwad Pranam, Prabhuji. Yashah Shivam Shushrava Arya Sangame Yadachaya Shopashnoti Te Shrakruta Katham Gunagno Virmedinam Pashum Shriyatva Pravavai Vray Guna Sangarechya. May I?
Yes, the translation.
May I read the translation, Prabhuji?
Yes. Please read the translation, Mataji. Then we'll see who else is.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear highly glorified Lord, if one in the association of pure devotees hears even once the glories of your activities, he does not unless he is nothing but an animal. Give up the association of devotees, for no intelligent person would be so careless as to leave their association. The perfection of chanting and hearing about your glories was accepted even by the goddess of fortune, who desired to hear of your unlimited activities and transcendental glories. Hare Krishna,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you, Mataji. I
Thank
think I
you,
saw
Dhanvat
Ambika
Mama.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Ambika Mataji, you can read the first para, then Divya Mataji can read the next para. And if any other devotee wants to read, we can keep going. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. The association of devotees, Arya Sangama, is the most important factor in this world. The word Arya refers to those who are advancing spiritually. In the history of the human race, the Aryan family is considered to be the most elevated community in the world because it adopts the Vedic civilization. The Aryan family is distributed all over the world and is known as Indo-Aryan. In prehistoric days, all the members of the Aryan family followed the Vedic principles and therefore they became spiritually advanced. The kings, known as Rajrishis, were so perfectly educated as Kshatriyas or protectors of the citizens and so greatly advanced in spiritual life that there was not a bit of trouble for this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Divya Mataji. Please go next. After the Krishnamurti Prabhu. Yes, Mataji. Yes, Divya Mataji. Please go ahead.
The glorification of the Supreme Lord can be very much appreciated by the Aryan family. Although there is no bar for others, the members of the Aryan family very quickly catch the essence of spiritual life. How is it that we are finding it very easy to spread Krishna consciousness among the Europeans and Americans? History reports that the Americans and Europeans proved their capability when they were anxious to expand colonization, but at the present time being contaminated by the advancement of material science, their sons and grandsons are turning into reprobates. This is due to their having lost their original spiritual culture, which is Vedic civilization. Presently, these descendants of the Aryan family are taking this Krishna consciousness movement very seriously. Others who are associating with them and hearing the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, Mahamantra from the lips of the pure devotee are also becoming captivated by the transcendental vibration. Transcendental vibrations are very much effective when chanted among Aryans, but even though one does not belong to the Aryan family, he will become a Vaishnava simply by hearing the mantras because the vibrations has given influence over everyone. Hare Krishna
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Krishnamurti Prabhu, please read the last para.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranams Mata Prabhuji. Maharaja Prutu points out that even the goddess of fortune, who is the constant companion of Lord Narayana, specifically wanted to hear about the Lord's glories. And for the association of the gopis, who are pure devotees, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, underwent severe austerities. The impersonalist may ask why one should bother changing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra continually for so many years instead of stopping and trying to Kaivalya, liberation, or merging into the existence of the Lord. In answer, Maharaja Prutu maintains that the attraction of this chanting is so great that one cannot give up the process unless he is an animal. This is the case even if one comes in contact with this transcendental vibration by chance. Prutu Maharaja is very empathetic in this connection. Only an animal can give up the practice of chanting Hare Krishna. Those who are not animals but actually intelligent, advanced, human, civilized men cannot give up this practice of continually chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Nandavat Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So it's a very beautiful purport again from Srila Prabhupada. Here, to break down the translation a little bit, here Prithu Maharaj is further glorifying that, my dear highly glorified Lord, if one in the association of pure devotees hears even once, that is very important, even once, the glories of your activities, he does not, unless he is nothing but an animal, gives up the association of devotees. So there are 2 points being made here. So even if one hears the glories of the Supreme Lord through pure devotees, he wouldn't like to give up the association of devotees, because the bonding between because this devotee is responsible for reinstating the bonding between the Jivatma and the Supreme Lord. So out of gratitude, out of the fact that, he really longs for that association, because that association is putting him in touch with Lord's, making him a Lord's associate directly. So that is one. But once someone gives up that association for some reason, he's nothing short but an animal. Okay? That is mentioned here. For no intelligent person would be so careless as to leave their association, right? The pure devotees association. The perfection of chanting and hearing about the glories was accepted even by goddess of fortune, who desired to hear your unlimited activities and transcendental glories. So here there's a mention of goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. So here, there's a first, the word that is most important here is Arya Sangame. In association of advanced devotees. Right? So while that's a translation, there is a uh, reference given to Aryan as a race. Right? So Arya race or Aryans were spread all across the world. India, there was nothing called, the Bharatvarsh was pretty spread. It used to go beyond Afghanistan, beyond many other countries. In fact, even today, when many people go to states like Indonesia, countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, they find a lot of temples, a lot of these old style deities. In fact, I'm told that if somebody goes to Indonesia, they keep names like Arjuna, Bhishma. Though they are Muslims by faith, they keep Hindu names like Lakshmana, and you'll find a lot of Hindu names, though the race is Muslim, and that's not happening, just like that. It's because Bharatvarsha had spread that far at some point, right? So these Aryans, which had gone beyond, who had gone, which had spread up to, which included Europeans also. In fact, Nazis also are Aryans, is what I read somewhere. So essentially, because of here, there is a mention that because of advancement of material science, because of the impact of the material modes, which became very, very strong, like mode of ignorance and passion, these sons and grandsons of their fathers, grandfathers, or the ancestors, they turned into reprobates. Reprobates means a person who's an unprincipled person who has no principles, no moral character. This is due to their having lost their original spiritual culture, which is Vedic civilization. Presently, these descendants of the Aryans are taking to Krishna consciousness movement very seriously. So this happened as Prabhupada traveled to the West. Many of these hippies became happy, right? The hippies who essentially were under the influence of drug, sex, meat eating, all the four regulative principles broken. They actually started to take into Krishna consciousness. They essentially became very nice devotees of Srila Prabhupada, started to spread the movement. So that's why Prabhupada says that they have started to take to Krishna consciousness movement very seriously. Others who are associating with them and hearing the chanting of the holy names from the lips of purities are also becoming captivated by the transcendental vibration. So many times when Prabhupada has actually gone to a park, and started to do the kirtan, slowly but steadily, people will start to pile up in hearing this beautiful musical rendition that Prabhupada brings to Hare Krishna, and they started actually, start to hear him. So that started to purify them also. The transcendental vibrations are very much effective when chanted among Aryans, but even though one does not belong to Aryan family, he'll become a Vaishnava simply by hearing the mantra, because vibration has great influence over everyone. So there is a very interesting study. I'm sure some of us may have watched it. I don't have that video at the moment handy with me, but there it shows that let's say you have an iron plate, right? And you put a kind of a fistful of sand on it, and you take a wire, something like a sonometer or something like that, the one which gives you a vibration. When you vibrate on the iron plate at certain frequencies, you'll find that the sand actually rearranges in itself into a geometric shape, right? It automatically organizes into a nice geometrical shape, like a flower or like a circular concentric circle, or some beautiful geometric patterns, which one cannot visualize. That how sound can actually get pieces of sand or particles of sand to organize in such a way, right? So that's the power of a material sound on a material object. What about a transcendental sound on a transcendental object? In the sense transcendental object, I meant living entities, which are essentially part and parcel of the Lord. So when there is a transcendental sound vibration of the holy names, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which permeates through the material body into the pure soul, goes into the pure soul, imagine the impact. The impact at a material level itself is so phenomenal. Imagine what it could be at a transcendental level, right? So that's the bit here. That's the transcendental sound vibration, which is very, very effective when chanted. And then Maharaj Prithu points out that even the goddess of fortune, who's in the constant opinion of a companion of Lord Narayana, specifically wanted to hear the Lord's glories. For pure devotees, the goddess of fortune underwent several austerities, essentially. The impersonalists may ask, why should one bother chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra continually for so many years instead of stopping and trying for Kaivalya, liberation, or merging into the existence of the Lord? In answer, Maharaj says that attraction for this chanting is so great that one cannot give up the process unless he's an animal. So essentially, one who has developed a liking for the holy names of the Lord will find it very difficult to give it up, right? Unless one comes into a bad association, or one essentially does offenses at the lotus feet of the devotees, like talking ill about a devotee, essentially kind of talking ill of people who have essentially given up their lives for this movement. Whenever there is any blasphemy that happens, or fault finding that happens, immediately one loses his interest in the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So one should definitely avoid, not just avoid, completely not do it as much as possible. And even if one does it and he realizes, oh my God, I just did this, then at least that consciousness is changing, right? At least it's a positive thing in a sense that someone who has done it is sensed that he has done something wrong, and he's realizing it and he's feeling sorry for it. He's willing to basically atone for it, right? At least that is still a positive gesture. But as much as possible, when when we find someone talking ill of any devotee, it's better to cut an excuse saying that something else has come up. You should try to first put an end to such a conversation if possible. If that's not possible, then at least try to scoot out of that meeting, that discussion, saying that somebody has called you, maybe, hey, there's a service coming up, I'm supposed to be going there, so that you're not participating or you're not hearing the blasphemy of a devotee that's happening there. So if one keeps away from this, one is surely going to rise in the devotional practice. So that's very, very important. So Prithu Maharaj maintains that this attraction of this chanting is so great that one cannot give up the process unless he's an animal, that we said, right? This is the case even if one comes in contact with this transcendental vibration by chance. Prithu Maharaj is very emphatic in this connection. Only an animal can give up the practice of chanting Hare Krishna, but those who are not animals, but actually intelligent, advanced human beings, human civilized men, cannot give up this practice of chanting. So essentially, here we read about few things here. The glories of the Aryan family, right? How Aryan families were essentially the most elite kind of people who were very kind of advanced in their knowledge of transcendental knowledge. And later, because of material influence, they got degraded. And after Srila Prabhupada went to the West, he got them reinstated with give them direct connection with the Supreme Lord. Once that happened, they started to connect directly. They started to transforming themselves into pure devotees of the Lord. And actually now the movement has come back to India. And then now we are able to see how this is transforming the lives of each and every individual here. So that's the bit I want to cover. Any questions before we go to the next one?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
I can hear you, Prabhu. Yes,
Prabhuji,
I can hear you.
One small clarification at your end. This Mahamantra and then Krishna consciousness is so powerful and so attractive, and also it gives all benedictions. Even though knowingly or unknowingly, why people were not attracting for that? Yes, because my personal experience is on Sundays after this Arati are finished in temple, we used to go first Nagara Sankirtana. Nagara Sankirtana around we devotees around 100 members maybe. So we used to go in all these corners of the city, Bangalore. I am talking. I'm in Bangalore. In all the streets we used to go. We enter in one street and we will get back in another street. People were very that will happens only very near to the temple only. People used to see, people used to hear. So many people were come outside their houses, and the people were before that shops and all those things. They were all seeing things. We were loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then with all this Mridangam, and also with deities we used to go. Even though why people were not coming to the temple very near. This is a
Yes.
really, you believe it or not, every week I used to go that for Nagara Sankirtana, at least 5 to 10 members if they accompany. The strength will increase from 100 to 110. Why this is not happening nowadays?
Good
And
question.
then you believe
Fantastic
it not,
question.
man, and in another means, today, this is an Yugadi,
Happy
Yugadi means.
Yugadi to all of you.
Yes, yep,
Sorry.
happy Yugadi. So I have sent messages around 200 members. 1 second, Prabhuji. I will read my message.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, happy Yugadi, welcoming new Samvatsara. Today is the most auspicious day. Please chant only once Hare Krishna Mahamantra. All our sins will be freed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Wishing all happy and prosperous new Samvatsara. I have sent around 100 plus. And I used to send this type of messages in all these festivals time. Not even a single person has asked me why you are sending, and is it so? Is it so helpful? No, I have not yet heard even a single person. Still lot right from 3 to 4 years. How
Okay.
this Prabhuji?
Yes. So, see, first thing is that when Lord Ram was here, right, when Lord Krishna came to this planet and performed his pastimes, there were many people, a couple of things that we can all definitely see is that when Krishna showed his Virat Roop in that kingdom, right, where he came as a peacemaker, right, as a messenger, that Virat Rupa was seen by so many people, like Bhishma had seen, Drona had seen, so did Duryodhana, Dushasan, all of them saw. But they were not able to see this Virat Rupa as the Supreme Lord. They were not able to, there are a couple of reasons that I mentioned. One is because of their enviousness of the Lord, right? They could not see, though Lord was there personally, right? In this particular case, I'll come to your point, Prabhu. In this case, we are trying to act like instruments of the Lord in terms of spreading the message. This message may transform some people, may not transform some people. The reason is, which Prabhupada states in one of the commentaries in Canto D, right, is that Paramatma is there in the hearts of the people, and transcendental message is why this reformation is not happening, why people are not changing. That is your question, right? Why, even if I am trying to preach, why is it that not everybody is taking to it? So there is a mention that Prabhupada makes in that one of the commentaries is that Lord gives a minute independence to every living entity. Even it was given to Arjuna as part of the Bhagavad Gita. Towards the end, after Lord gave everything about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, everything was given. Yatha Ichhasi Tatha Kuru. That means do as you please. Right? Lord gave him back that independence. So Lord essentially, when anyone wants to come to the Lord wants to come, make sure that that person comes on his own accord after his heart has got changed. So as Lord gives this minute independence, what typically happens is that many people, this is true with many people, they abuse that minute independence by talking ill of the devotees and the people who have spread, who have basically dedicated their lives for the movement. Hey, what is this? He's acting like a big guy. I'm giving an example here. He's essentially, I don't know what these guys are doing. They left everything and they're running behind Krishna. So people outside may look at us in a very different way. And when they mock at us, ridicule us, what happens is the Lord takes them away further from bhakti. It's a natural reaction that essentially since that minute independence has been abused, it leads to more sinful activities, and that actually stops them from basically taking to bhakti. That stops them from having any heart transformation. You would realize that anyone who has taken to bhakti would show some humility at some point, right? Many times when people are very arrogant and dismissive, they don't take to bhakti. But anywhere a person has exhibited some humility, you'll immediately take to bhakti at some point. So those are the reasons I have read and understood in Srila Prabhupada's purports. But Prabhuji, don't lose heart. You continue your good seva. It is, Brahma, Janita, there's someone who's fortunate, right? The Krishna consciousness is not a commodity. It is something that is very, very special, given only to few set of people. It is like, I'll give an example of, see, everybody in this country writes IIT exam, 10 lakh people. How many clear, right? So similarly, there is only few set of people who actually are fortunate, either by their past deeds or by association of devotees, and therefore they're able to take to Krishna consciousness. So it's a very small set of people who essentially are fortunate, and it's only few people, and among them, the intelligent class of people only take to Krishna consciousness. So it's a rarity, not a commodity. So that is also a second thing. Then there are things like their previous karmas, their abuse of minute independence, many factors that come into play. But that doesn't mean we should stop our seva. That doesn't mean that we should stop spreading the movement. We should do as much as possible for the pleasure of Krishna. So Krishna will be happy saying that, hey, my devotee is trying to spread my word across, and he's doing his best. Now, when Krishna sees that a devotee is doing his best, when a devotee plays his part, Krishna plays his part later. At some point, some transformation can happen. Maybe they've read the message today. Maybe after 10 years, some life transformative event can happen and they may take to Krishna consciousness. I've seen that also happening. I've seen people who become, they lost someone very close to them. Suddenly, a devotee has actually found access to them. And then their hearts transform because they're already at a very low phase in their life. So there are many factors, Prabhuji. What you're doing is an excellent seva. Asking people to chant the holy names of the Lord, please keep doing that. There will be somebody out of those 500, 300, 600 who may take your message seriously. And even if that devotee transforms, that's good enough. Even if that doesn't happen, it may happen sometime later, but you're doing your bit. So is that helpful, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. At last, I myself decided that while reading the message, they used to read this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Yes.
Hare Rama,
Yes.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Right.
That itself is a grace for me. Let them read.
Yes.
Today or tomorrow they may read, they may not read. At least while reading Krishnamurti has sent something else. Shall we read? That they might have read. That
Yes,
is the
Prabhu.
one thing.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking this question. So we'll go to the last shloka. Atavaje twakila purushottamam punalayam padmakare valalasah apyavayor ekapati sprudo kalir nasyat krita twak charanaikatanayoho. Anybody wants to read the shloka again?
Can I read, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. अथा भजे त्वाखिलपुरुषोत्तमं गुणालयं पद्मकरेवलालसः अप्यावयोरेकपति अस्पृधो कलिर् न स्यात् कृतत्वचरणैर्कथानयो.
Nice.
Hare Krishna.
Please
Prabhu.
go ahead. Anybody wants to read the translation? Archana Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Translation and
Yes.
purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now I wish to engage in the service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to serve just like the goddess of fortune, who carries a lotus flower in her hand, because His Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. I am afraid that the goddess of fortune and I would quarrel because both of us would be attentively engaged in the same service. Purport. The Lord is here addressed as Akila Purushottama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of entire creation. Purusha means the enjoyer and Uttama means the best. There are different kinds of Purushas or enjoyers within the universe. Generally, they can be divided into three classes: those who are conditioned, those who are liberated, and those who are eternal. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is called the Supreme Eternal of all eternals, Nitya Nityottam, Nityo Nityanam. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are eternal. The Supreme Eternals are the Vishnu Tattva or Lord Vishnu and his expansions. So Nitya refers to the personality of Godhead beginning from Krishna to Mahavishnu, Narayana and other expansions of Lord Krishna as stated in Brahma Samhita, Ramadi Murtisu. There are millions and trillions of expansions of Lord Vishnu as Rama, Nrisimha, Varaha, and other incarnations. All of them are called eternals. May I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, I'm just trying to see if anybody else has raised their hand. Let's see anybody. Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Okay, Raksha Mataji. Maybe you can read this passage and then Raksha Mataji can take over the next one, Mataji.
Next
So there are only
paragraph.
3 or
Okay,
4.
okay, Prabhuji.
Yes,
The
yes,
word
yes,
mukta
yes.
refers to the living entities who never come within this material world. The baddhas are those living entities who are almost eternally living within this material world. The baddhas are struggling very hard within this material world to become free from the threefold miseries of the material nature and to enjoy life, whereas muktas are already liberated. They never come into this material world. Lord Vishnu is the master of this material world, and there is no question of his being controlled by material nature. Consequently, Lord Vishnu is addressed here as Purushottama, the best of all living entities, namely Vishnu Tattvas and Jiva Tattvas. It is a great offense, therefore, to compare Lord Vishnu and Jiva Tattva or consider them on an equal level. The Mayavadi philosophers equate the Jivas and the Supreme Lord and consider them to be one. But that is the greatest offense to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Raksha Mataji, you want to
Yes.
read the next one?
Hare Krishna.
Then Krishnamurti Prabhu will read the last one. Yes.
Okay,
Go
sure.
ahead, ma'am.
Hare Krishna. Here in the material world, we have practical experience that a superior person is worshipped by an inferior one. Similarly, Purushottama, the greatest, the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna or Lord Vishnu, is always worshipped by others. Prithu Maharaja therefore decided to engage in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Prithu Maharaj is considered to be an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, but he is called a Satyavesa incarnation. Another significant word in this verse is Gunalayam, which refers to Vishnu as the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. The Mayavadi philosophers, in accordance with the impersonalistic view, take the absolute truth to be nirguna, without qualities, but actually the Lord is a reservoir of all good qualities. One of the most important qualities of the Lord is his incarnation to his devotees, for which he is called Bhakta Vatsala. The devotees are always very much inclined to render service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and the Lord is also very much inclined to accept loving service for his devotees. In that exchange of service, there are many transcendental transactions which are called transcendental qualitative activities. Some of the transcendental qualities of the Lord are that He is omniscient, omnipresent, all pervasive, all powerful, the cause of all causes, the absolute truth, the reservoir of all pleasure, the reservoir of all knowledge, and the all auspicious, and so on. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Rakshamati. Krishnamurti Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavas Pranams Prabhuji. Prithu Maharaja desired to serve the Lord with the goddess of fortune. But this desire does not mean that he was situated on the platform of Madhurya Rasa. The goddess of fortune is engaged in the service of the Lord in the rasa of Madhurya, conjugal love. Although her position is on the chest of the Lord, the goddess of fortune, in her position as a devotee, takes pleasure in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Prithu Maharaja was thinking only of this lotus feet of the Lord because he is on the platform of Dasya Rasa, or servitorship of the Lord. From the next verse, we learn that Prithu Maharaja was thinking of the goddess of fortune as the universal mother, Jagan Mata. Consequently, there was no question of this competing with her on the platform of Madhurya Rasa. Nonetheless, he feared that Sri might take offense at his engaging in the service of the Lord. This suggests that in this absolute world there is no sometimes competition between servitors in the service of the Lord, but such competition is without malice. In the Vaikuntha worlds, if a devotee excels in the service of the Lord, others do not become envious of his excellent service, but rather aspire to come to the platform of that service. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavats Pranams Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Beautiful set of purports, and the shloka itself is so beautiful. So if let's go back and rewind, what we saw in this. So here, there's a mention of essentially the Akila Purushottama, which is the best among the personalities, living entities, basically the topmost. Uttama means the best. Right? Actually, here there is a mention in Vedas. The Supreme Lord is called the Supreme Eternal of all eternals, Nityo Nityana. So basically the shloka is Nityo Nityana Chetano Chetananam Eko Yo Bahunam Vidadati Kama. Right? So essentially, we are persons, Lord is also a person. We are basically we are living entity. He's basically we are eternal in the sense that we also the soul never vanquishes, and Lord is eternal. So he's basically, so what is the difference between us and the Lord? So essentially, it is that one Lord, the one Nityam, one Nityo, basically, who's essentially sustaining all other Nityas. So he's the one who's providing food, shelter, everything to us. So that's what this shloka is on Nityo Nityana. Both the Supreme Lord, otherwise both are eternal. The Supreme Eternals are the Vishnu Tattva or the Lord's Vishnu's expansions. So here there is a shloka from Brahma Samhita where it says, Ramati Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavatarmakaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapumagyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So I worship the Govinda primeval Lord. These are Brahma's prayers to the Supreme Lord, who manifested himself as Krishna and the various avatars in the form of Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, and other forms. So essentially, that is being taught here. That particular Supreme Lord Krishna, who manifests as Mahavishnu, Narayana, and others. There are millions of expansions of Vishnu, and that some of them are mentioned. All of them are called eternals. The word Mukta essentially refers to human beings, living entities who never come into the material world. Patas are eternally conditioned. So there is Muktas are eternally liberated, or they never come into the material world. And Baddhas are the one who are struggling. We are all Baddhas actually. And Lord is addressed as Purushottama, and basically he's the best among living entities, namely Vishnu Tattvas and Jiva Tattvas. So the whole total classification of all the living entities is between these two categories, Vishnu and Jiva Tattvas. It's an offense to compare Lord Vishnu with Jiva Tattva or consider them to be an equal level. So, however, Mayavadis actually compare Lord Vishnu with living entities. So they think that essentially when Lord comes to the material world, he becomes a human being and he is afflicted or he's under the control of the three modes of material nature, like which Lord is completely transcendented to the modes of nature. He comes with his original transcendental form. He doesn't get a new form. His form is always transcendental. When he comes from Goloka Vrindavan to Bhuloka, he is carrying his original transcendental form and he's not affected by any karma. So these are the problems that Mayavadis have. Here, basically, here in the material world, we have a practical experience that a superior Lord, a superior person is worshipped by an inferior one. That is very obvious. We always look up to people who are superiors, who have more knowledge, more wisdom, more experience, and we look up to them for advice and for any consultation. Purushottama is always worshipped by others. Prithu Maharaj decided to engage in the service of the Lord. Prithu Maharaj is considered to be a Shaktyavesh avatar. Now, what is a Shaktyavesh avatar? Shaktyavesh is a living entity who gets a special empowerment from the Lord. So, essentially, Satyavesh is a living entity, but he gets infinite powers coming from Supreme Lord to carry out a particular task. So another significant word in this is Gunalayam, which refers to Lord with all his transcendental qualities. So Mayavadi philosophers, in accordance with, they take Lord to be Nirguna, without qualities. So basically, they consider Lord to be an embodiment of material goodness. Right? They say they look at him like a creator, but they ignore his transcendental qualities. What are those transcendental qualities? His name, form, pastimes, his relationship with the devotees. All these are his transcendental qualities. And Mayavadis completely ignore that. Right? And they call him without qualities. They just look at him like a creator. One of the most important qualities is Bhakta Vatsala, that relationship with devotees. Right? How Lord actually becomes, while bhakti is very hard to get, the transcendental love of the Supreme Lord is the hardest thing to get. But once a devotee starts to relish this love, Lord becomes subservient to such a devotee, because Lord knows that this particular devotee has no sins left in him, no ego, no false pride. This devotee is completely pure. All the impure coverings like lust, anger, greed, etc. is got completely removed. So this devotee has taken, or basically is replicating some of the characteristics of the Lord himself, right? And therefore, Lord falls in love with such a devotee, and he becomes subservient to that devotee. Right? He knows that that devotee, even if Lord momentarily acts as being subservient, the devotee will not take advantage of that situation, because devotee always wants to be subservient to the Lord. He always wants to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of his devotees. So a devotee never takes advantage of Lord's position of being subservient to his devotees. Right? And such devotees are always very much inclined to render service unto the feet of the Lord. And Lord is also very much inclined to accept loving service from his devotees. So it's a two-way relationship. So basically, I read a very beautiful passage in Prabhupada's purport, is that what is the transcendental competition between Lord and his devotees? So essentially, it so happens that devotees basically want to serve the Lord without any benefit. I mean, they don't want a material benefit. They want to serve because they love the Supreme Lord and they want to satisfy him, please him, by just serving nicely for him. So when they serve Lord without any motivation, Lord gets pleased, but Lord also becomes a debtor. He feels like a debtor. That, okay, what can I pay them back? I have nothing to offer them. So what happens is Lord gives his transcendental smile to these devotees. And when they see this transcendental smile on the Lord's face, they become energized. The moment they become energized, they serve even more. And when Lord sees the devotees to be energized, Lord also feels satisfied. Seeing Lord being satisfied, devotees feel further happy. right? So this transcendental competition between Lord and devotee continues that way. So, so that's the beauty we are talking about. And some of the transcendental qualities of the Lord is omnipresent or omniscient, and there's a beautiful Bhagavad Gita shloka on this. Just open that. Matta partaram nanya kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam parprotam sutre manikana iva. So Lord says that everything rests upon me, and I am the thread which is stringing all the pearls together. So everything that you're seeing in this world is strung by me. I am that invisible thread which is stringing everything. If we see this material universe floating in the air, it is actually because of Lord's arrangement. He's that invisible thread who's holding all the planets together, who's holding everybody in this world together. Right? So everything, he's therefore omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, all those characteristics, which is materially inconceivable for a human, for a living entity. Here, there is a mention that Prithu Maharaj, in a kind of a lighter way, he says that I'm afraid that the goddess of fortune and I would quarrel because both of us have actually been engaged in the same service. So, what he's trying to say here is that Prithu Maharaj also wants to serve the Lord, but he's worried that goddess of fortune should not take offense of it, right? Because she's serving the Lord very closely. So here, Prithu Maharaj is still in the rasa of Dasya, Dasya rasa. So what are the 5 rasas which are possible? First is Shanta rasa. Then comes Dasya rasa. Then comes Sakya, right? Then Vatsalya. Then last is Madhurya. So Madhurya is the topmost, right? So Shanta rasa is exhibited by all the trees, the Krishna's flute, all the trees, branches, water, Ganga, Yamuna. They exhibited Shanta rasa as part of Krishna's pastime. Then comes Dasya, Ruchi, Patrika, Chitraka, and some of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, they exhibit Dasya rasa. Then comes Sakya rasa, right? Sakya rasa is exhibited by whom? Any like our Balram, Krishna's coward boys, right? Boyfriends, basically. They all exhibited
Arjuna.
Sakya rasa. Arjuna, Madhumangal, right? They were all like friends, right? So they were, Arjuna is also a good example. So Sakya rasa. Then comes Vatsalya rasa. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, they exhibited Vatsalya rasa. And then who exhibited Madhurya rasa? The conjugal love, the
Radha
rasa of
Rani.
conjugal. Radha Rani, beautiful, Sindhu Mataji, very nice, Radha Rani. So Prithu Maharaj, now we know that ladder of rasas, right? From Shanta rasa to Madhurya rasa. So there is still few stages to go from Dasya rasa to Madhurya rasa. So basically, Prithu Maharaj, he'll eventually call Goddess of Fortune as Jagan Mata, but he's saying that, okay, and he's here Prabhupada mentions a very beautiful point that unlike material world where sometimes, devotees may, there should be no envy in a devotee, but there is a possibility that can happen. But in spiritual world, if one devotee is excellent in a particular talent or in a particular skill, other devotees essentially see how I can improve, what can I do to get better at this, rather than the fact that what I can't do, nobody should be able to do. Right? That's jealousy and envy, basically. If somebody is able to do, feeling bad or feeling miserable, that he should also not be able to do later. Right? That should not be the case. So essentially, Prithu Maharaj is glorifying Lord very beautifully. We talked about few things here. For example, hearing from pure devotees of the Lord. We talked about chanting of the holy names of the Lord. The third we talked about is basically the fact that the devotees always want to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So therefore, we call it devotional service. We don't call it devotion without a purpose. So it's essentially, we want to serve the Lord by manasa, vacha, karma, by hand, by our speech, by our body. We want to engage all our senses in Lord's service. We also want to feel, we want to get better also at our sadhana. We want to make sure that we do our best in terms of getting better in our sadhana, not to become some scholar or not to essentially become some celebrity in the devotee circle, but actually to please the Lord. Right? When Lord sees that the devotees of Lord are acting very sincerely, Lord gets pleased. I talked about the transcendental competition between Lord and devotees on how better I can serve, to be able to see a smile on Lord's face. When Lord smiles, the devotee feels very satiated, very happy, very enlivened. And when devotees are seen enlivened by the Lord further gets satisfied, and that competition continues. So thank you so much for patient hearing. I know we are about 10-15 minutes over time. Any questions? We'll close the call otherwise. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gurudev ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
These type of experiences
Uh-huh.
we can get
Mhm.
only if you go to temple, regular temple, and then while this Sankirtana moment, and then
Correct.
while chanting this Jagannath Ashtakam.
Hmm.
So we will become we will become least than the dust. The supremacy of the Lord will come in within our sight, in our
Hmm.
sight. So that thing is to be experienced in temple only, Prabhuji. So we
Yes.
have to. That is a great. Really, I'm very happy to hear these words at your end. I thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
No, thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing your beautiful realization that Jagannath Ashtakam is very dear to me also. And there was a point I was to know it by heart. Even now, I think I can. But you're absolutely right. When we see devotees in the temple, beautifully offering service to the Lord, we get so enlivened, we get charged up. And you're absolutely right. Temple is the right place for all these experiences. Of course, at home also, we can see some of these experiences, but not to the extent that we see in temple. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing your realization. Hare Krishna. No further
Krishna,
questions.
Prabhuji.
I'll end this meeting.
Please, Prabhuji. Hare
Happy
Krishna.
Yugadi to each one of you. A blissful, happy Yugadi, a happy Krishna conscious Yugadi to each of you.
Yes,
Hare
Prabhuji, wishing you the same.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Thank you, Pranams.